Hello and welcome to One Sheet, unique techniques and tools in Revit for creating intelligent design concepts in only one sheet. This is lesson 4. We're going to dive right into developing building massing concepts. Let's open up the Jarvis file here, and we're going to start in this plan. So let's zoom in down over to this plan. First thing that you're going to want to do, since this is technically a section and not a plan, we need to set our work plane. So up here on the right, upper right, we're going to hit set, go name, and make sure that level first is selected, not any of these grids that I have loaded into here. Hit OK. So what we're going to do is we're going to use ceilings. These are pre-made custom parameters and custom family types that are all ceilings that I'm using to do building massings with. Now, the reason that I'm doing this is because ceilings are probably the easiest to work with in terms of massing. When you create thickness for these, they populate up rather than down like floors do, and so it's actually the least number of clicks, oddly enough, to get to a full massing concept. I don't like to use massing or the massing tool or a massing building tool. It takes longer, and you have a really complicated building design or master plan design that has multiple uses, mixed use, garage, podiums, that type of thing. I've found that using ceiling families on a very simple building block level is the way to go. So that's part of the unique part of this experience. So bear with me and let's dive in. Let's go to architecture, ceiling up here at the top. Now, on the right on your properties is where you get to select the type of mass, and we're going to call these building massings, these floor massings, which are actually ceilings. But where I want to start is retail as our ground floor. So retail 20 feet is where I'm going to start with, and we're going to click this sketch ceiling right here. This pops up again back to your boundary tools, your line tools. I'm just going to select this rectangle tool here. I'm going to zoom in, and because of the grid pattern I have on this curb building pad floor layer, it kind of snaps to the hatch that's placed on there. And I'm just going to create that, and you can change the dimension of this pretty easily. I encourage you to play around with this, with how to create these lines, but for now I'm just going to show you how to do the real basic stuff. When I hit the check mark, now if you notice that it just disappears, what you're going to want to do is zoom out, and you'll see it's floating above here. That's because for some reason sometimes when you draw, it automatically assumes there's a height offset. I'm going to move my head up here. The height offset here, you go down and just make this 0, and you'll see it snap down to that first level there, which is what we want to see. So the next thing that you really want to do is notice the parameters, the custom parameters I put in here, and also just notice how you're going to start seeing this item populate on some of these other plans. You'll notice down here in these 3D views, it shows up in all of these 3D views because we haven't actually labeled this building, this massing, this example of a floor massing, anything yet. And you're seeing it show up this darker color here because you're actually looking at the roof. So if we go into the section, I have to uncheck my active design option here. I can drag this down to cut through that, and now you're going to see the cut color. So let's select that building massing. Let's start filling out some information. I've placed this massing, if you notice, over this parcel C plane. So when I select this, I want to make sure that that is also labeled parcel C. Okay, and just for an example, we're going to call this building 1. All right, and I'm actually going to type out for all of our buildings, we want to type out building 1 because that's how it's going to display in our data and our information. For these massing, for anything that's not a garage massing, we're going to leave garage number / on-site empty. The next thing we want to do is enter the target efficiency. Now, this is where things can get a little bit tricky with this, right? So if you're in an early phase and you're not drawing all of the hallways and you're just trying to hit a target, efficiency, you're going to want to place that target efficiency here for now. Let's just say this is an 85% build efficient single story building right here. I'm going to type 0.85. That's the labeling convention for that. Next step is when we select it, you're going to want to go into hit edit type. This is where we're going to change the next set of parameters for this. And just so you know, when you select this box, these parameters you're filling in here only applies to this one instance. So actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this building massing here. If you hit this little copy button after you select it, click and just kind of click again, we're going to see that we can actually change these values independently for these two. So because this is placed in parcel B, let's change this to B, and we want to make this building 2. Okay. The target efficiency, maybe we want to make that 0.9. And the next thing we'll probably want to do is change maybe the type of building this is. Maybe this is not retail. Let's change this to, let's go ahead and make this a grocery of 15 feet high grocery. And I'm just going to extend the floor plan out there. You're going to notice when you change the type, it's going to also change the color. And I have these colors preset. In future videos, we'll talk about how to change those. But for now, let's stick with this. So now you're seeing whatever information shows up under data here, it can be different for these two, and in fact should be different for these two. The next step is to click on one of these and go into edit type. So in your edit type, these values are going to be consistent through all of your retail 20 feet, all of your retail for this retail 20 feet. If you make another one somewhere else, all of these values will remain the same. The only things that we need you to worry about right now is use. Retail matches the actual family type, that the thickness here matches the 20 feet here, the naming convention, and you can go in and you can change this stuff, but for now I don't want to get into that. What you want to be focused on is whether, mostly on your parking. So this cars required per square feet, that's the target. Are you know, if this is a 5, if your client is asking for this, or if the city is driving this, usually they'll say 5 cars per 1,000 square feet. This is your 5 cars, this is your 1,000 square feet. That does your parking calculations, and that also does your, it also makes it show up so that you know on screen what each is. If there are no units in this building, if it's not residential or hotel, this is set to 0. Don't worry about not service and building. So those are separate discussions there. So once you've got those placed on there, you're going to start noticing more information filled out on your heads-up display. You'll see grocery and retail, 64%. All this stuff is automatic. So the convenient thing is that it even shows your first floor usable square feet, service square feet. It's all based on that efficiency calculation that we put in there, right? So if we go to building efficiency, it even says building 1, building 2, 0.85, 0.9% efficient. As we're looking into this, you're also seeing cars required. We're looking at 134, and that's based off of each of these having these parking ratio values in there: 5 per 1,000, 3 per 1,000, and also you have your parking required broken out there. If we go down to here in your parcels, you'll see this only shows up in parcel B, that building, and this only shows up in parcel C. So you know that these are located where you want them. They're very important. The next thing that you want to work with is levels, right? So in here I have 10 levels placed. I have three below levels and 10 levels up, and they're all set at 10 feet. I don't ever want to change that. I want to offset from that, because working with levels is a pain, and when you have multiple buildings, you don't want to have multiple levels. It ends up being really time consuming to change all of that. So I'm ignoring that for now, and I'm just saying this project can do up to 10 levels. You can make more if you like, which we'll talk about in a future video. But what I want to show you here in our 3D view is how I work with levels for Jarvis. Let's take this, control copy. I'm going to make a couple more levels. After you control copy, you can go to modify, paste, align to selected levels. So you'll see the levels available here. I'm going to go second. And you'll see because I have all of my levels set at 10 feet, and this is a 20-foot building volume, they're kind of overlapping. Well, first of all, I want to change this maybe to, um, let's say fitness, 10 feet. You see how it's kind of overlapping here? As long as you have it set to the right level, um, the only other step is to offset this. So if we offset it 10 feet, now we have our second level, and we have our massing kind of correct there. Again, we want to make sure that this is using the same parcel. We want to double check this information constantly. This is part of building one, and we're going to keep the same efficiency there, right? So that's going to dictate our upper level, and you're going to see that again. You're going to see all that information displayed under buildings, and it's going to be constantly updated in your sections and in your plans and all that good stuff. The next step is I want to start drawing some parking, so some garage, not parking, but just some garage, right? So if I select my curb here, my first floor for a garage, I'm going to edit boundary, needs to be on the same plane as the level one. So I need to actually cut a hole in this building pad, this curb, and I'm just going to say that is my garage. Okay, and then I'm going to go architecture. I'm going to go ceiling, and I'm going to come down here to garage. And there's only one because this is really just a plane. Let me sketch this, and I'm just going to go over this same line. Okay, and you're going to see that also offsets 100 feet up, so we need to change that, bring that down to 0. Okay, and that'll snap it into place there quite nicely. And because this is actually a ceiling and populates up, it's 6 inches thick, so I'm going to bring it down by -6 inches. Similarly with the building volumes, we need to make sure that we have this labeled properly on the right parcel. This is parcel D. So I'm going to type in parcel D. And in this situation, this garage is not part of another building. So I'm going to leave building blank, but it will have a garage number, and we're going to call it garage 1. Okay. Now, there isn't anything else that you need to do for that. We don't need to fill out the target efficiency for a garage, so we're going to leave it there. But I do want to create a couple of more levels, so I'm going to go Control Copy, Control C, paste, align to selected levels, and I'm going to say, you know what, 2 through 5. I'm just holding Shift. We're going to create 5 levels of this parking. Each of these should be -6 inches, depending on depending on where your actual floor plane is, because we want the top of this slab to line up with the actual floor level. So again, another ceiling, instead of being 20 feet thick of a ceiling, this is going to be 6 inches or whatever you want your concrete base to be. Now, if we go into edit type for this, you're going to see a couple of different things. You don't have to worry about changing anything here, garage and building. Those for other calculations that don't need to be messed with. But I'm using the cars required rather than building a new parameter. I'm just using the cars required square feet to give me an estimate on how much parking is in this parking garage and in this family. So right now I'm saying 350, and that's representing square footage per car. If I hit OK, that square footage per car is going to give me this garage estimated number here, and it also shows what you're working with here in case you want to know. So that way you can measure up cars required versus estimated, garage estimated, without actually drawing all of these spaces, right? So that gives you a pretty immediate outlook on what potentially you're working with. That's pretty much it. I do want to note that the parking garage information does begin to fill out here. Only the square footage um, information starts to show because we haven't actually drawn any parking spaces. But you will start to see some of that stuff come by in the future. I also want to show you building 1 and building 2 are broken out here by uses. And then over here they're broken out by just pure square footage, usable square footage, gross total square footage and that kind of thing. It's similar down here with the parcels, but what we actually are looking for is our parking square footage in parcel D. So that's our garage. It's telling us exactly how much square footage we have in there. That's it for this lesson. And the last lesson that we're going to go into is next, and that will be actually drawing parking spaces.